Hello and welcome to Voices from the Stage, a podcast from the URBACT Network, Reinventing Culture and Urban Places. I'm Elisa Filippi, lead expert of the Recap Network, and I'll be your guide on this journey to discover the creative and cultural heart of our cities. In this series, we will explore how culture can reconnect people, transform neighborhoods, and reduce loneliness. Yes, you heard that right. How? Through the way we design, inhabit, and imagine our urban spaces. We will hear directly from the people who are shaping these changes on the ground. Urban planners, of course, but also artists, activists, and visionaries working across Europe. Our first stop, Újbuda, the most populous district of Budapest, Hungary, of course. It is a place rich in contrast, close to the Danube, surrounded by green hills, crossed by the famous and vibrant Bela Bartok Boulevard, but also by abandoned industrial areas, lively avenues, and quiet, creative basements where creativity flourishes in unexpected corners. Guiding us through this landscape is Balin Curves, architect, urban planner, and one of the key figures behind Cap for Creativity, the award-winning project funded by the European Urban Initiative that started it all. So find a quiet spot or a curious street and join us. This is Voices Point the Stage. Let's begin. Good morning and welcome. Thank you very much for being the first guest of the first episode of the Voices from the Stage, the podcast. Balint, you are an architect and an urbanist with many years of experience. Based in Budapest, you are one of the pillars of KEK, which is the Hungarian Contemporary Architecture Center, which played an important role in the Cap for Creativity project funded by the European Urban Initiative. And now you are as a member of KEK, is collaborating with the Újbuda district in the Reinventing Culture in Urban Places Network. So, since we are talking about cities, let's start from the beginning. Why did you choose architecture and what made you passionate about this intersection of urbanism and culture, especially here in Hungary?
Why I decided to be an architect, it actually goes back to my childhood. It might sound like a cliche, but like many architects, I started by playing with Lego and wooden building blocks. But what made it more real for me back then was that we were searching for a new home for quite a long time when I was around 10 years old. So we visited many houses, and I even drew a few design ideas back then. And this, of course, had another effect on me. Though my parents actually didn't choose any of my designs, so we didn't end up living in a mushroom house or a labyrinth, but on my profession, on my decision later on. As I got older, actually, and I had to think more seriously about my future, I chose architecture because I wanted to contribute to creating better environments for people. And that's actually why I joined the architecture university, where later on I realized that architects are just one of the stakeholders involved in developing the urban environment. So I also started urbanism later on to better understand the forces that shapes our cities. That's why.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, Valin, also for sharing this very personal anecdote. Very nice. So, with a bit more focus on the Cap for Creativity project that we already mentioned, what's one takeaway from the Cap for Creativity project that you believe could really inspire other cities, for instance, in the Recap network or in general at European level? So, what is, from your point of view, the most important takeaway?
So our organization, the Hungarian Contemporary Architecture Center, was involved in two main areas during the Cup for Creativity project. First, we conducted research at the beginning to better understand the local context, where our goal was to map out relevant stakeholders and collect data. And during this, we carried out a cultural mapping of Budapest's 11 district. That was the action area of the project, which is actually the largest district of Budapest with around 134,000 residents. It's also one of the most diverse district of Budapest, featuring vibrant cultural city center. And besides that, there are a wide range of neighborhoods, from villa-type neighborhoods to village-like areas and to large-scale socialist housing developments from the 70s. And moreover, it also includes extensive brownfield zones. And one of the most important findings was that the clear confirmation for us that the built environment plays a key role in determining what kind of services and activities a neighborhood can attract. And in return, later, those services shape the life and character of the neighborhood. Backward effect. And let me give two examples for this.
Yeah.
We already expected actually to find many creative professionals and cultural actors in the inner city, in this cultural city center I already mentioned. And that was confirmed, but what really surprised us that there were significant presence of creative industries in the brownfield areas. And our mapping revealed this clustering in these zones. And when we started analyzing and profiling these points on the map, we discovered a mix of artists, creatives, and even high-tech research centers. They are operating in these forgotten post-industrial areas. And actually, it makes a lot of sense when we started to think about it, because brownfield areas often function like isolated islands within the city. They are slightly removed from residential neighborhoods, which offers large and flexible interior spaces and allow for activities that might otherwise disturb residents. So in these places, actually, these are ideal for these actors to calmly do their activities. It was also an important finding because these brownfield areas in Budapest, but I think everywhere in the world, are actually under pressure from the real estate investors, and they try to demolish them and build new housing blocks and new neighborhoods in this place. And it's important to notice that if we demolish these areas in our cities, then we lose a very vivid and very vibrant, important part of the city life. And
Super interesting.
another finding that we also realized from our research that how services influence the neighborhood, because in this cultural city center we found many galleries, art places, gastropubs. We expected this because it was in front of our face, next to the street level. They actually have places on the street level next to Bartobela Street. But we also found many artist workshop places and ateliers, which we didn't expect. And we found these in the hidden part of this cultural city center area, in the smaller streets next to the Bartobela Boulevard. And they had to go there because the artists came to this area because of this cultural city center. They could only find affordable rental spaces in these side streets, and especially in the basements of these side streets. So the cultural developments of this area actually attracted artists who reshaped the neighborhood and reshaped these very dark, cave-like, abandoned basements into places where you can now find treasures and hidden gems. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, you highlight very interesting aspects. And besides, what I think it's really important to consider for all us, you discovered all of this in the initial phase of the project through your complex multidimensional research. So again, the important investigation and research also at the local level. Okay, we know that one of the main pillars of the CAP creativity was creativity itself. But we know that, of course, to promote creativity through a policy, especially a top-down policy, it could be very tricky. So, what I would like to ask you is, from your experience, what worked in Újbuda to this regard? So, do you have maybe an example that you want to share?
Interestingly, the most important deliverable of the creativity project was originally to create a new kind of online platform. It's supposed to be cultural Tinder, which is like a platform to connect people who would like to co-create and organize cultural events together. And the project expected this platform to create some kind of an environment for the people and make them create more and make them organize more cultural events to make a better city life. But we realized actually throughout the project that it doesn't work like this. And it was already planned in the project that as well that we will create side events to this platform. We will create offline events, organize offline events to promote the platform. And we realized that this kind of side events became the heart and essence of the project. First of all, and in the beginning, it seemed like it's a hard task, and we were working 2 years on this platform. But when we finished the platform, actually that was the hardest part, which started that we needed users on the platform and we needed people to stay there. And that was the biggest challenge, to make them stay on the platform and keep them engaged to the platform. And it really didn't work. What was working is the offline events, which I already mentioned, these kind of offline events where people could meet, where people could mingle, and they can interact. And it clearly showed us that this part even more important than creating on online platforms. I think from this point of view, what I believe is the most transferable to other cities in this relation is that meaningful connections and engagement often start offline and not on online platforms. And these events help build trust, collaboration are fostered, and created a sense of community. And this is something which no digital platform can achieve on its own. And another thing is that all these events were actually organized based on a strategical concept, which I think is very important and very unique, and can be also transferable to other cities. That there was this educational strategy which consisted in three levels. It's like a ladder. That the first step was inspiration, the second step was education, and the third step was creation, which meant that we organized events in this all of these three steps. And the first steps was introduced to those who were not involved in the creative fields, so basic residents of Újbuda. And these were inspirational events where they could get to the event, check an exhibition, a concert, or any kind of creative activity. They could learn about it, how they could just be inspired that this exists and you can do something like this. And they can be just amazed how beautiful things can be found in the city. And the second part of the journey was the education part. We organized these educational events as well, mainly workshops where they could learn how to do things which they saw before. So this way they could, quickly develop some skills, and they could realize in these kind of events that what they saw before is not like a magic trick, but something which they can also realize. And after the third step was the creation. We didn't really get to this level because the project implementation finished, but the process didn't stop. So there are still events in Újbuda which aims these three steps. And the creation was really, this was actually the step where creative actors should meet and mingle and network. And this was the idea on the third step, to make co-creations in between creativity. So what we wanted to organize there were mainly networking events to inspire, to make creators inspire each other. And that was something actually which originally the online platform wanted. But we realized during the implementation that we have to start even at a lower level. We have to start with inspiration and education, and then we can start encourage co-creation.
Wow, Thank you very much, Valin, for sharing this creativity process, which I think could be reference and of inspiration also for the other cities. Just one final question about Újbuda experience. We know that the one of the other pillars of Cap for creativity was loneliness. So how to reduce loneliness. And I mean, I understand it may be hard to address or difficult to address loneliness with urban policy, but based on your experience, what's one concrete thing that cities can do better to reduce loneliness through public spaces or design or activities?
It was also one of the main goals of the project to reduce digital loneliness, and the idea was to reduce digital loneliness with a digital platform. And there is a logic behind. If people are spending time in front of their computers, mainly a platform is something what they need, which makes them move out to the city. So it could work as a threshold for going out and meet with other people. In the end, what we saw in our project that these events which we organized, these offline events, these actually these were actually working. So people started came to this event, and they started to mingle. And what was a key fact about a key very important part of this was we organized smaller events. It was really important that people tend to open up in smaller events where there are limited number of visitors. Try to organize events where the visitors should have make some kind of actions, participate in the process, or with either answering a question or play something, an instrument or an act. They also had to interact with other visitors. And this, if you make people do this, then they open up and they connect more easily with others. So that was actually working. And what we saw that people actually were really looking for these kind of opportunities, because there was also COVID during these times when we implemented the project, and they were actually hungry for this kind of events and opportunities to meet with others. And I'm sure that the type of program is very important in how a city or how someone who organizes a program can affect people and try to reduce the loneliness of the people.
Thank you so much, Valid. Okay, so now we move on to the last two questions. And since we're talking about European cooperation, a question is what Europe means to you in just 3 words.
So for me, it's very important, and I see it also from my friends as well, that we are just partly Hungarian citizens. We are also European citizens. So Europe really created this kind of family, this kind of new kind of relations between nations. So the three words, let's say, for me, Europe means Erasmus. That's a very important experience from my life, and I would actually suggest everyone to go for an Erasmus, because it's a place where you could meet with other citizens of other countries of Europe, and you could realize in this kind of events that we have many things in common. So there is a kind of European identity, and I really believe in this. And since participating in Erasmus, I really feel that I'm not just a Hungarian citizen, but I'm also a European citizen. Erasmus, I would say, one important one. And also unity, let's say, that's the other word. Of course, it's all about getting rid of these quite ridiculous national borders, which are actually only exist in our minds. There are no other reason for these. These are for taxation. There are some history behind getting rid of these borders, are actually create new kind of connections and rehabilitate the connections which existed before. geographic and cultural connections. And I think that's very important because it's much more logical how regions work. We are working in Cake, in Hungarian Contemporary Architecture Center. We have projects, interact projects, and we could see that cities next to borders are now having much more vivid life and economic life between each others. And it's thanks to Europe. And the third word is colorful because even though we are very similar, as I mentioned it before, that we are very similar, we are very, there are still many different many different people, culturally, economically, and socially. So there are actually Europe is actually much more colorful
Yeah.
than just nations of it.
Thank you. But just one question. What if you could change something, what would you change? Just one thing, the most important thing.
Let's say I would actually introduce Erasmus to adults and even retired people. So I think it's a really great program, and Erasmus for retired people can be an important program, a bit connected to what we did in the Cup for Creativity in Újbuda. So it's a program which would take retired people to other to new situation to and it would make them interact with others in other countries and to meet new cultures and new environments. And I think it's very important to have this kind of experience.
Yeah.
It's very important for them to have this kind of experience as well, because they didn't have it in their life, and they would understand more what is the European Union about and what is this European identity which the young generation is talking about. So I would make it even more bigger program.
I agree with you. Well, coming back to Budapest and the Újbuda for the very last questions. A question: if you, I mean, if we were all visiting Újbuda right now, where would you take us to feel the recap spirit or cup for creativity spirit?
I would take you to these two places which I mentioned in connection with our research. Of course, to the Cultural City Center, but not just to the boulevard, but I would also take you to this side street and to these basements, which I mentioned to you, which, let's say, 6 or 7 years ago were just very dusty and dirty storage rooms. But now they are really like treasure caves with treasures. So it's like treasure hunting. You get in and you can find these interesting artists and creators who are actually very open to show you their workshop places. And the second place is these brownfield areas, which from the outside may look something really uninteresting, but when you get in and you walk around, you also find these hidden treasures, and you could find actually not just arts there in these brownfield areas, not just cultural activity, but also research institutes and startups which are experimenting and creating actually very interesting new technologies as well, in connection with the technological university just 1 kilometer from there, also in the district of Újbuda.
Great. Thank you so much. The very last question. I mean, we are talking about Budapest, which is one of the most important European, even historical cities of Europe. So, do you have like a movie to suggest us to better understand Budapest transformation?
Yes, there are many movies actually, since we are organizing the Budapest Architecture Film Festival. Each year we select actually 15 movies which are somehow connected to Budapest and the development of Budapest. The most interesting for me from the last years is Push. It's actually a film which investigates how the market investors started to use real estate in the market. So how they started to use flats as a financial assets. So they are using it in their portfolio, just use it as money, and they are not looking at on flats as living spaces. It's important because the film investigates and the film states that these new actors in the cities, these investors, are actually like if their flats are empty because it's easier for them to exchange it on the market. But as the film shows you, it's really important that since they appeared in cities, they actually has a huge effect on the housing market of the cities because they are buying flats and they keep these flats unused and empty. And because of that, we need new houses for the other people, for the locals who just wants to live there in the cities. So it clearly shows this kind of phenomenon, which is quite hidden, but it exists and it's reshaping our cities, also shaping Újbuda and the city center of Budapest, of course.
Great, great. Yeah. If Cap for Creativity was a movie, what kind of soundtrack would you choose?
Let's say an ambient type of jazz because it's a vivid cultural city center with very interesting, very diverse art and cultural initiatives, but it's also not a harsh one. It's not the party district. That's very important,
Yeah.
and because of that, it's a calm place where you can go out and enjoy culture and art, discuss some things with your friend next to a beer. So it's more like an ambient area, a calm area for intellectuals and people who love art. And that's why I would choose kind of just like this.
Thank you very much, Valin. Thank you.